And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with Mark Aylward. And Mark, well, first of all, Mark, thank you for spending some time with me today.
Thanks for having me, Michael. It's my pleasure.
Well, it's going to be a really good conversation. Mark is he's got a big background in HR and helping people get jobs and find jobs and do all kinds of things. But for the last few years, he's been helping people what I say is break free from their own prison, find purpose in life, stop working for a paycheck, and really find their fulfillment and their purpose in life. And buddy, when you do that, it is freedom. It's like breaking the sound barrier. So I want to dive in and Mark and talk about this because I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this because we're not working a job sometimes, or we're not building a business. We're actually working a job, and sometimes even entrepreneurs can get stuck. But let's talk about all of this. Tell me, how in the world, Mark, did you actually get doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's kind of a two-pronged story, Michael. I think the overriding 35-year career in and we joke about HR. We're not HR people. We're staffing people. It's a different perspective on things. More of a joke than anything because there's a lot of crossover there.
Uh-huh.
So I built and sold a couple of IT staffing companies. That takes care of the first, 30, 35 years of my career, and then bumped into some personal stuff, contentious divorce. I've got three young adult kids. That kind of pushed me to sell my last company. And then I spent, you know, maybe 10 years raising my kids by myself
Mhm.
by choice. I won custody of them as my own attorney, and I'm not an attorney. And so I needed flexibility because I was taking three athletes and good students and extracurricular activity kids to different places all over the place. So I decided to take my experience and say, well, why don't I just take this kind of online and say, everyone that I ever helped find work was kind of going through some of the same stuff, the same struggles, the same, I don't really know what I want to do or why I'm doing this, or I don't like my boss, or I'm bored, or, there's a litany of reasons people want to change. And in my experience, most people are always open to new possibilities. So
Yeah.
I tried to put that in a bottle, and I was successful. And I started reaching out and marketing my services as more of a coach. And the biggest challenge I was having is wrestling. I can help everybody, but you can't market to everybody.
Right. Right.
So my biggest challenge, lately has been what's my niche, and I'm kind of hovering in that middle-aged men space because that's what I am. But I love helping young people too. So maybe I can trickle back into that market as I diversify moving forward. And
Yeah.
I've also bumped up against a lot of need for leadership training, and I've been training leaders my whole life too. So I'm still kind of moving in that space, trying to figure out where that niche is without kind of beating myself up too much. I've helped quite a few people, and it's been a lot of fun. So the personal stuff put me into the coaching, but I was ready to move into that space anyway. So now I'm doing leadership coaching and career transition, I suppose would be a good phrase for the other
Good.
half of it. I see it all as interconnected.
Yeah. That's in leadership training and career coaching because when how do I say this? So many times I think business owners and whether you're a business owner or whether you're working in a business, you're growing yourself, you're leading yourself first. You have to do that first.
Hmm.
One of the first books I read on leadership, well, I mean, this was decades ago, John Maxwell, Developing the Leader Within You.
Uh-huh.
Then his next book was Developing the Leaders Around You.
Hmm.
And those two books really helped me understand that before I can ever lead anybody else, I've got to lead myself. I've got to know my direction, my purpose, my meaning in life. And I've gone through different transitions in my life where I have found myself in prison, as I say, the
Hmm.
job I hate at ministry I loved. And to find my way out, I had to kind of stop banging on the doors and pull back and really discern who I am and what are my desires and passions and dreams for me.
Hmm.
Is that kind of what you find when you're working with people? They're in a cloud and they're looking
Yeah.
for clarity?
Clarity is a big thing. Yeah. Uncertainty to clarity is a big transition. And that's it's life-changing when you go from cloudy to clear. I mean, it's in hindsight, you look back on it, it's like that sounds pretty simple. It's no, most people that come to me And I get a lot of referrals now because I'm old.
Yeah.
But they come to me wanting to, I want to find another job doing this. And I say, well, hang on a second. Do you like what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? You know?
Yeah.
And they don't give themselves permission to think outside of a very small box. And in my experience, those boxes are formed young. Guidance counselors, parents, teachers, coaches, all well intentioned, most well intentioned, but without any clear insight into who you are and what you really want to do because you don't even know yet when you're young.
Yeah, that's right.
So that doesn't ever go away. As you suggested, Michael, it's not a, what I look for when I help people or for myself is it's not a linear progression up. It's up and down and up and down and up and down. You just want if you pulled that graph out, you'd want it to be a straight line up, but
Right.
you can't lose sight of the fact that you're going to have downs and ups and downs and ups. It's not a smooth line.
Right. Well, and it shouldn't be really. I tell people a lot of times that as I disciple them and things, is, we all want mountaintop experiences. We want to
Mhm.
be way up there, and I'm like, those are great, but how many trees grow on a mountaintop?
Yeah.
Not many. You look down in the valley, that's where it's lush and green. And I
Mhm.
said, do you know why it's so green down there, Mark? And you're like, no. I said, well, that's where all the crap is. That's where all the but we
Yeah.
have to go down, and that's where we really grow, is going through those hard times to figure out who we really are, so that as we come out of that, we
Mhm.
find clarity, and that mountaintop experience is a whole lot better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You talked about people getting stuck, and I was stuck a couple of times in life. And I remember one time I was stuck, and I was praying, and God, I said, God, I want to do something else. And he basically said, well, Michael, what do you want to do? If you had a whiteboard in front of you,
Mhm.
draw your future life, what would it look like? I was probably 35 or 40 at the time, going, I can do that. Can
Yeah.
in a sense, I can forget everything I've been told and dream. And he's like, yeah.
Mhm.
I think people don't get to that point. Do you find that they're listening to so many outside voices that they're in a box? It's like, no, blow the lids off the box. And what drives you? How do you get up every morning, not dreading going to work or doing something? Is that where people are, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful way to say it, and it can be said in a number of different ways. But it's that what you just suggested. It's like I can give myself permission anytime I want, but most people don't know that.
Yeah,
And I've spent a lot of my life bumping into, as I'm sure you have, this is the way we do things because it's the way we've always done things. And I'm like, no, I call BS on that. That's
yeah,
no, 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 no. That should never be the reason that you do things.
that's right.
And people say things to you when you bump, airline counters or rental car counters. Oh, we can't do that. And I say, let's be honest. You can do that. It's just that you don't want to do that or you won't do that. So let's work
Yeah,
around that if we can.
that's
And
right.
it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I don't know why, but as a for instance, when I started coaching my own children who are now late 20s, early 30s, to get their first job and then to start their own companies, they all turned to me, and this was some of the impetus behind what I'm doing now. Dad, you know stuff that most people don't know. No one else is teaching this stuff. You got to figure out how to get this in front of more people. And I'm like, well, let me reflect on that. And to your other point, I bring a spirituality to what I do, and my belief is in God, but I don't push that on other people. I say, if you need to call that spirituality or a higher power or the universe, I'm not proselytizing. I
Yeah,
call him God, but just recognize you don't have much control over anything. So if you give yourself to a higher power, like I said in my case, God, things start to kind of settle a little bit. They don't get easy, but they get more joyful. There's more ease in what you do. There's less grinding away at things. And that creates, in my mind, hope,
yeah.
and hope is a very, very powerful emotion.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, I'm a follower of Christ, and man, I was in the scriptures this morning. I'm reading through Proverbs right now, so I was in Proverbs 22 today, and it's just fascinating how Solomon just talks about things like this, and he
Hmm.
talks a lot about how wisdom and knowledge are better than gold and silver.
Hmm.
Not that gold and silver are bad. Wisdom and knowledge is just better than them. What are we pursuing? Because when we find that, yeah, I'm not in control, when I look at the birds and the squirrels and the bunny rabbits, and you know what? They get food every day. Now, they have to leave the nest to go find it.
Mhm.
I think so many times we just want to sit back and say, well, bring it to me, God, bring it to me, God. It's like, well,
Yep.
I don't think that's the formula. I think God's going to provide, but I think he wants you to work and to go and to trust. And when we do those things, if it's hard, that's okay because we have an anchor. We have a place to go that's safe and secure and go, all right, Lord, I don't get what's going on. I
Yep.
know you do.
Yep.
It's going to be okay. But dude, talk a little bit about that and how you help people kind of navigate through that because that's a hard place to get to sometimes.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there, right? So it's you know, I think to me it comes down to inner work. Um, the external work is great. You need to take action, you need to do stuff. But when you work on yourself internally, and like we're talking about, just connect to God, every time you can, every day, and say, gonna need you today, God. I'm gonna need you around. Please help me today. And thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'll be back. It might be 2 o'clock, it might be 11:30, but I'll be back, and
Yeah.
I'll be back again tomorrow. But for the meantime, here's everything I'm worried about. Can you take that and grab that and put it in a bag for me and let me run the rest of my day, and I'll see you tomorrow and we'll talk about it again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to doing it. But I think if you have a spiritual bent to what you're doing, I think things get easier. I think there's less anxiety, there's less worry.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that spiritual bent, the activities and the things that you need to work on, self-awareness, self-reflection, they're all the same. And as you well know, Michael, you give me any credible person that speaks about helping people,
Yeah.
and everything they say, you can track it back to the Bible.
Oh,
Everything,
without question. Yeah, without
everything.
question. I did an exercise years ago with Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly
Hmm.
Effective People. Love that book, changed my life. And I took every one of those back to scripture. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, duh. Right.
Yep.
I was reading scripture today and I read something. And I'm like, we should just preach that, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
and we do in so many, in a variety of ways. We just kind of leave God out of it, which is really sad because what I found is when you start with God and then you just build your life around his principles and his ways of doing things, it
Hmm.
just works.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
talk about meaning and purpose in life, and you look at Jesus and he came to serve, not to be served,
Mhm.
right? And he came to give his life. And you look at service, you live at giving, and how are you approaching every aspect of your entity, of your being, of your work life? You show up every day looking to serve, not to get.
That's
It
right.
changes your mentality and your perspective, right?
It does. I think service to others is probably the easiest way to fulfillment, happiness, contentment, all of the above. I think it's and without the problem, I think one of the problems with spirituality and online marketing is, I don't know what the percentages are, that there's significant enough people within those spaces that are not authentic. They're manipulative, and it's difficult to navigate, particularly in this world of communication with social media and noise, division. It's very difficult. My kids and people ask me, Dad, how do I know who's telling me the truth?
Right.
And I just say, there's the simplest way, and you got to go deeper than this, but the simplest way is listen to what people say and then watch what they do. And when those two things are the same, there's integrity there. And when those two things are different, have a healthy sense of skepticism, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And I think one of I mean, that's phenomenal advice. The next thing is do this. Have a Zoom
Hmm.
with somebody. Because
Yeah.
if you spend 50, even 15 minutes with somebody, you're going to sniff them out pretty quickly
Yep.
and have a really good indication. And I mean, I love Zoom in the world we live in. I talked to somebody the other day, a dear friend of mine lives in Australia, and I met him at a networking event online, and this was like 5 years ago. We meet once a month.
Hmm.
And I can never do that without Zoom and the internet, right?
Yeah.
But it's finding, and I've come across some people that I meet for 15 minutes on Zoom. I'm like, yeah, we are not aligned.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're a
Yep.
bad person. We're just
Yep.
not in alignment. So
Hmm.
let's just part company now. And
Yeah.
that's totally cool. I love that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The challenge with that, and I totally agree with you, is it's difficult to scale that because 15 minutes with how many people a day
Oh,
over what period of time. So that's when you try and step back from that and say, is how can I automate this without losing the quality of the experience? And
Right.
that's a
Absolutely.
challenge. It's a
It,
challenge I wrestle with.
It can be, yeah. And if you hang around me very much, and my audience knows this, I do a lot of Loom videos, and we've got
Hmm.
a whole funnel for before podcasts, before sales calls, and where you're getting me for 5 minutes, 7 minutes talking about different things, but I'm showing up,
Hmm.
and I'm very consistent in how I show up because I learned a long time ago I don't need to be a poser. I
Yeah.
don't need to try to be somebody you think I should be. No, this is who I am, Mark. And if
Yeah.
you like me, great, let's talk. If you don't, go away because we're
Yeah.
not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I find that by doing a lot of looms and in video, inserting video in my social media, in my funnels and things, it bonds people to me or
Yep.
repels them. But a lot of times it just bonds so that by the time I get on a sales call, it's not a sales call at all. It's a conversation. And they
Yeah.
know me, they know my background, they know what I do. And it's like, okay, how can I help you?
Yeah.
That I have preached that for a long, and it's really funny coming from a guy who publishes books and helps
Hmm.
people become authors to go, yeah, that's amazing, but are you doing video?
Yeah.
Because video is really how we really deeply get to know people and take that
Yeah.
content from your book. So I'll shut up, but does that resonate?
It does. Yeah. I have a current client, a corporate client that I'm doing some leadership training with, and he found me. He's a CIO. I won't name names or
Yeah.
be specific because I haven't asked him for permission
Right.
to do so. But he pinged me on LinkedIn, I don't know, 6 months ago, 8 months ago now, and said, do you offer leadership training? And I thought to myself, well, I've been training leaders for 30 years, but I never called it that. And I said, yes. I said, let's set up a Zoom call. And we did. And to your point, he was in a conference room and he got on the phone. Great guy. He's like, Mark, I've been watching your videos and reading your stuff for like months, and I feel like I already know you. And I said, well, that's cool. I guess this cake is half baked. What do you
Yeah.
want?
Yeah. That's right. And it's so much easier to have a fun conversation because then we're almost at a friendship level. It's like
Yeah.
if I came to your city and we went out for coffee, normally the first 10 minutes is that dance of trying to find common ground and where
Hmm.
I find when you precondition people with videos and show up, that's all done. You have the
Yeah,
phone call
yeah.
and
You'll as you probably noticed. I mean, I probably, we have similarities in what we do and we have differences in what we do. My style's a little more, I'm from Boston, so sarcastic, wise ass. I drop F-bombs now and then, but I would never do that unless I asked you permission to do that. And
right.
it's easy for me to speak to you and understand, well, that just wouldn't be appropriate for this audience. So use your brain. But I love humor. I love sarcasm. I love self-deprecation. I love, that's how I write. And the more authentic I am with that, the more people like that I attract. And this guy that I was talking about, he's from Boston too. So
Right. No, because birds of a feather flock together. We want
they
to be
do.
with our own tribe. We want to be people who are like us.
Hmm.
And it just makes life in business so much easier. Let's talk real quick. How do you work with people? So if somebody in my audience is kind of stuck
Hmm.
somewhere, they're in a transition in
Hmm.
career. Maybe they love what they do, but something's just not firing on all cylinders.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's the process of working with you? Is there an introductory call? Is it a 3 month engagement? I mean, big picture, kind of how does this thing work?
Yeah, the current model for that career transition coaching is very simple. It's a 30-minute free call, and you can access that call from my website, from my LinkedIn profile, pretty much anywhere I am. I'm pretty easy to find, and that's on purpose. And then I ask a couple of questions in that pre-Zoom area or that pre-call area. I think I use Calendly. And what's going on? What's the biggest challenge? What do you want to talk? Anything you want to add for our conversation? So I have some idea, and then I look them up on LinkedIn. And not really interested in people's resumes because resumes is not what I do. Although I can help you with your resume, if you're only depending on your resume, you're doing it wrong because this is a relationship game. But and then I charge an hourly wage, and I tell people, uh, if I can help you, I'll tell you in that 30-minute call, and I'll give you a little insight as to how I think I can help you. And then I give a discount on a 3-hour bundle because I don't need much time with people. I do an hour of intense work with somebody, send them off for 2 weeks because most people are employed or busy doing something else. So they can't like knock out the work I need them to knock out in, a couple of days. And then they send me their notes. I have them go through a few workbooks, find your true purpose, polish up your LinkedIn profile, go do that work. And then we'll come back and we'll have that discussion about how to tell your story. And we'll talk more deeply about who you are and what you want to do. And that's an intensive kind of second hour. And the third hour is more, it becomes tactical. And I don't need a fourth hour 99% of the time.
Hmm.
And then a certain percentage of those people will want to check back with me, for career polish, updates. Because as you know, as I tell people all the time, don't be in a position where you only respond to me when you need to react immediately, right? Let's caress this thing. Let's call this a lifetime engagement. And it's like, if you check in with me 6 months for an hour, it's going to cost you a piece of change that will pale in comparison to what you'll get back from it. But you don't have to come back. You can
Yeah.
do this on your own. I can just expedite things, clarify things. You're not going to bump into a lot of situations I haven't seen before. So it's just easier if you stay on my shoulder, but it costs you a little bit of money. And that's kind of a standard business model, right?
Right. No, I love that. I love that. So a short 30-minute call to begin with, and then a short engagement after that. I really like that because what I find, Mark, is when you find somebody like you who understands the questions to ask, to really start eliciting what's going on inside of me, giving me some work to do. I love that aspect
Mm-hmm.
because usually what I find is when I work or when I talk out loud a lot. I talk to myself out loud and I answer myself. I get my best answers that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I process verbally or do work that somebody's giving me, that's when the aha start to come, and then you come back and say, okay, here's what I got. So I love that model. How do people take that next step? Where do they go? LinkedIn website. What's the best place for somebody to actually just connect with you to start down that roadway?
My company name is seven, the number seven, and then pillars, Pillars global.com. And on the front page, I believe it's still above the fold. Book an appointment or get on my calendar. I can't remember the verbiage. I probably should have looked at that before we got on the call. And then my LinkedIn profile is the LinkedIn URL / Aylward Mark,
Okay.
AYLWARDMARK. And then that will take you anywhere you want to go, my YouTube channel, and other places. But I would say consume what's on the website, get familiar with me, maybe take a look at a couple of my videos on YouTube, read some of my stuff on LinkedIn, watch a couple of my videos on LinkedIn. It won't take you more than a few minutes to maybe a half hour to go, oh, I know who this guy is and I like him, or I'm put off by him. Then to
Yeah.
your point, that's cool either way, you know.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. So subscribe or unsubscribe. Either way is
Yeah.
fine with me. All right. Well, I'm going to capture both of those, Mark, and get them in the show notes
Okay,
so
cool.
that people listening can grab those when they listen to this episode. Thank you for just showing up authentically. Thank you for doing what you're doing to help people find more clarity, get out of those clouds, find the clarity and some purpose in life and some meaning, because every day should be a meaningful day as we go out and serve others. So, Mark, thanks for what you do. Thanks for being my guest today on Expert Speak.
Yeah, Michael, thank you for having me, and I really liked the way you conducted that conversation. It was really really well done. Thank you.
Oh, you are welcome.